Good afternoon, everybody. It's Friday afternoon. It's Troy at Tempest Road Sport here. Just thought I'd make this little video about a 2007 Audi S6 VXA engine, the 5.2 litre V10 that I have removed at the moment. This vehicle came to us with misfires. Faults started, pretty aggressive faults started when the owner was driving the vehicle. Obviously parked the car up and got it to us. We started the diagnosis on this with the assumption that it was just a electrical issue with the misfire. It's going to be either mechanical or electrical, one or the other. Electrical being more likely, i.e. maybe a coil pack or a number of coil packs, or a fault in a wiring loom somewhere. So anyway, we started the investigation by reading fault codes, as you would with VCDS, in which we were presented with obviously multiple misfire codes, and we were also presented with camshaft sensor bank B, which is cylinder 6 to 10 on this engine. Bank 2, which is cylinder 6 to 10, sensor B, which is for the exhaust camshaft. Next thing we did was swap the sensors, which just in case it's a down crank sensor. It wasn't that. The fault code that was presented was actually for signal too high, which you usually get if a crank position sensor on this engine management system is unplugged. So we checked the wiring for continuity, that was all good. Voltage, down the signal wire and the supply voltage to the sensor in question were all good, at 4.98 volts. 5 volts is actually a fault on this system, so that's not a problem. So we decided to use an oscilloscope to compare the two camshaft sensors on this side of the engine. When we turned the engine over, which sounded pretty lumpy but tried to start, we had a voltage being recognised for the inlet cam, but there was a static voltage for the exhaust cam. At which point, that kind of suggests that, well, if there's nothing wrong with the sensor, then the camshaft itself may not be moving. The other thing it could have been, we thought, is that the camshafts in this engine are actually hollow, and all the lobes are pressed on, as is the reluctor for the camshaft position sensor. So we decided to take the sensors out and use a mirror to look in the ports for the sensors, which are located just here and here on this engine, and sure enough, we found that we could see the inlet camshaft position sensor reluctor moving, but we couldn't see, we could see rather that the exhaust cam was actually not turning at all whatsoever. So obviously the cam cover came off next, and we found, and let me just see if, I don't know if I can I turn on the flash on this? No, I'm not sure that I can. Let me just go and grab a hand light. You can just have a look around how much of a beast that thing is there. Let's see. So on this engine, and now on most modern Volkswagen Audi engines, Volkswagen have moved away from using a more traditional cam follower, like a bucket, some people call it, that is actuated on directly by the lobes on the camshaft, that then presses directly onto the end of the stem for the valve. More commonly in the modern engines, there are now rocker fingers that actually sort of sit between the spring and the lobes of the camshafts. So what's actually happened in this engine when the fault occurred when the owner was driving it is that you can see there, the roller rocker that's underneath the inlet valve, or one of the inlet valves on cylinder 6, has actually decided it didn't want to be located in its correct place anymore. And what it's done is it has, if I can just get some light on it, you can see it just there, has jammed itself underneath the exhaust camshaft, moving the exhaust valve rocker there slightly out of the way. It's obviously bounced around in there a little bit, because you can see that the reluctor ring for the exhaust camshaft position sensor has some scoring on it. So obviously, needless to say, the whole thing really needs to come out, because if the camshaft's not moving, but the inlet, or the exhaust isn't moving, but the inlet is, the chain drive is obviously compromised in some way, but not compromised completely, otherwise you would think you'd lose drive to both. So out of the hole it came. It's a big engine, obviously, with it being a V10, although the automatic transmission is arguably just as big as the engine, and the combined weight of them is somewhere in the region of 400 and odd kilos. So yeah, pretty big. A lot of people shy away from these kind of jobs. I'm not sure why. I guess people don't want to get involved in the complexity of it at times, but I really enjoy doing these sorts of jobs. Really interesting to me. This is the kind of thing I like to do all day long, really. As you can see, though, going back to the actual fault at hand, the actual variable adjuster for the camshaft drive on this engine is not located. It was just about retained in place with the chain on it still, running on it, and there was still good tension, but it is actually sheared off its locating pegs that should actually, so you can see just in there how it's mullered the end of the crankshaft, basically. Camshaft, sorry, in the exhaust side there, and you can actually see on the part itself, you can see the sort of damage as I move the light around to the mating face. So it's been allowed to rotate, basically, and has fortunately kept the tension enough to keep the inlet cam running on the right sort of timing, so to speak. Not sure if there's any valve damage as of yet. We're going to use a compression leak down tester when the camshafts are removed from the engine to see if there are any bent valves. We're also going to stick a bore scope down the spark plug ports to just see if there is any physical marking on the tops of the pistons. With this being an FSI fuel stratified injection engine, the pistons are shaped in quite a complex manner to enhance the way the fuel is introduced into the cylinder for combustion. So it's quite possible that there could be some damage, some marking maybe to the top of them. If we're lucky, if the owner's lucky, it might not be the case and he might have gotten away with it, but we shall have to see. So next step is to take the camshafts out and do all that. New parts are on order from Germany, because they don't hold stock of much of this in the UK, because how many of these are you likely to see failing in this way. Interesting to note, I have read elsewhere that people have experienced the bolts for the variable cam drive sprockets becoming loose of their own accord. Don't know about that. That seems quite unlikely. These things are torqued quite well. There are special tools to hold everything in place that you have to use, otherwise you can't really do them up properly. So the validity of those claims I have no idea on. All I know is that this one's been done by the fact that that rocker finger has got stuck underneath the camshaft, which has locked it and then sheared the drive off. So there we go. I'll try and put a video up. I might try and do another little time-lapse video if you saw the one of the engine and gearbox being removed from the car, and see if I can do another one of those where I take the cams out, because that should be quite fascinating. Anyway, this is the first time I've really made any videos like this. It's something I'd like to do more of. I always find these kind of things interesting myself when I watch on YouTube and things like that. So yeah, sorry if it's been a bit hit and miss, getting words confused and things like that, but I hope you've enjoyed it, and maybe see you on the next one. Thanks very much for watching. Bye now.